So here's another quick interview tip if you want to do a bit more research about the software that a company might produce should you be going to that company for an interview. So in a previous web dev tip, we were looking at this particular website, and if we dive into the actual source of the website itself, we've obviously got the HTML that we can look at to find out some clues about how the app has been constructed. For example, I believe this is an Angular app, so we can see some of the components being listed here in the HTML. But if you head on over to the Sources tab, this will be where all of the source files are located, such as your images, HTML files, and also CSS and JavaScript. And we can actually get a feel for the app's structure by looking at some of the JavaScript source. And you might be lucky enough to find some source map files which actually map these back to a structure and to the original files that created the website. So in Angular, that will be a bunch of components and TypeScript files. And if we have a look in the JavaScript section here, you can see we've got the app.js file, but it's obviously all minified and we can't really see anything from that. But if you scroll a bit further down, you might find a Webpack folder in here, and you can see inside of here, we've actually got the Angular folder and app structure in here, so we can go through and we can actually see some of the components and modules that would have been used to create this actual application. So unfortunately, if you actually click on these, you'll see that the source mappings aren't correct. They're not actually uploaded correctly. But if you are lucky enough to find an app that's in a kind of staging state, or potentially maybe they just haven't actually excluded, or they have actually provided the source map files, then you should be able to see the original source code in here. So you can just take a look and see how they're structuring their apps, and that'll give you a nice thing to talk about at interviews, because you can mention that you've had a look at the software and also that you've got an understanding of how it's been put together. But you can see here we've got all of the different components that will be used to create this website, and you can keep going through and look at all of the different structures and services and things like that that have come together to create the app that's on the page. So you can use the technique that we looked at in the previous web dev tip, where you can research the domain of a site to find actually any running apps that are publicly facing, and then you can use this technique to dive into the source code if it's available and find out a little bit more about how that software has been put together. So there you go, there's another tip for researching a company before you go for interview. But that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.